Once we have our plane, you can think of this as a large empty plane. Now I'm doing loop cuts so that we can start creating some geometry. Is it the word? Is geometry the word? I don't know actually. So that we can create some sort of edges first in the rows. I'm using the middle mouse button to create multiple cuts. At this point, I'm already thinking of aligning everything. That's why I have the first extruded edges at the bottom to give me some sort of guideline. When I do the loop cut, you can see how it's evenly split amongst all the other edges. That's how I measure everything. I want to keep this all aligned in the beginning. It just makes everything so much easier. The textures being applied makes it easier to be applied on your geometry. We need to make loop cuts for the columns as well. For this is entirely up to you. You can have much more loop cuts if you want, but from the looks of it, having 3 loop cuts is good. It keeps our quads all the same size. This is the little squares that I'm talking about. We do the same for the right side. Do multiple loop cuts. You see everything is nicely organized with all the edges in the rows and the columns. Now that we have this plane that we cut in small squares, you can definitely see around the outline there's a bunch of dead space. For dead space, I mean the squares that aren't really touching anything around the outline. They're just there because we just made cuts out of our shape. For these squares on the top left that I selected, we can actually remove those faces. We don't really need them. That's just going to be taking up space for our character. But that's how I've been doing it for the characters in the video. Also, as I've been progressing in the video, you'll see a lot more of that changing in my workflow. I started noticing this in my workflow that I was doing this. It seemed to be the smart thing to do because it makes a lot of sense. You can actually see it visually why I'm doing it. All this dead space can just be removed. It's all visualization. You just have to look at it and decide, okay, this is empty. I can remove it. We don't really need it. Just keep the ones that are touching any of the outlines, and that will make your life so much easier. This was a process that I decided to use for my character. This does change a little bit later, but we'll get to that when those videos come out. This is pretty straightforward. You could have just started with a plane, then just scaled it up, and then do your loop cuts. That would be an alternative way, but I usually do it the same way where I have it starting with a smaller cube and then extruding out in all the directions. That just makes more sense to me, but you can do it the way you feel that's more natural and comfortable for yourself. This was more natural for me. It's part of my routine. I've been doing it for most of my characters so far. It's been working, and I don't find any issues with the way I'm doing it.